If you ever walk away from conversations thinking, I should have said that differently, this episode is for you. If you've walked away from a conversation and thought, I should have said that differently, they did not understand what I was trying to say. Now everything feels off. Maybe hours later, you're replaying the whole thing like a movie you can't turn off, embellishing stories and feeling worse and worse. If that sounds familiar, stay with me, because today I am going to teach you a simple coaching tool I use with my clients to stop the emotional spiral after hard conversations. Not to pretend it didn't hurt, not to slap a smile on, but to actually calm your body and get your mind back. This is one of the most practical things I teach, and it changes everything. I want you to picture this. You just had a hard conversation, maybe with your husband, with your adult child, the family member. You were honest, or at least you tried to be. And now you're floored. Your mind is racing. Your emotions feel too big. You're second guessing everything. This is the moment most women I work with think something has gone wrong. But what if I told you nothing has gone wrong? Your nervous system is just activated. And let me show you how to slow that spiral and use your prefrontal cortex, which is your higher brain. I want to introduce you to the reality creation formula. Before your brain jumps to, that sounds woo-woo, don't worry. This is practical, and this is how your brain already works. It's awareness, and the formula is simple. We have our fact, and then we have our story, which is our thought and the feeling that we tie to that fact. And you remember in last week's episode where I talked about facts, how there's no emotion in them, how they are just something that can be proven in a court of law? Let me give you a quick example. I live in Arizona, so the summers can be hot. I could think it's so hot outside and think that that is a fact. But that is really my story. What the fact would be if I look at my watch or if I look on my phone and it says it's 110 degrees outside. That is my fact. Now my story would be it's so hot outside. So do you see the difference? Taking out the emotion, it's just what is. I can prove in a court of law that on this date at this time, it was 110 degrees outside. I cannot prove that it's hot outside. So after our fact, we have our story, the thought and the feeling that we add to that fact or think about it. That creates our behaviors. And our behaviors are how we show up in relation to that story. So if I'm thinking it's hot outside, I'm usually grumpy, or I stay inside and I become lethargic. And then that creates my reality of I have a bad day because it's so hot outside. Now, that is just the model. The reality creation formula. It's what happened, what you made it mean, and how your body responded, and what you did next, and the outcome you're living with. The key with this reality creation formula is our reality always ties back to that thought. If it's 110 degrees outside and I think, What do I get to do today that's going to make it an enjoyable day? I will have a better feeling. I will come up with things that I can do. It doesn't mean I'm outside roasting, but I have a better outcome, and that helps me to have a better day, as opposed to it's just so hot. So let's talk about a situation that you might recognize. You have a conversation with your adult child, and that child says, I don't believe in the church anymore. Now that we can put in the fact line, because we can put quotes exactly what they say in that fact line. The story might be, what did I do wrong? Where did I fail? How do I fix this? I thought I did all of the things. There are a plethora of thoughts that we can add to that fact. And those kind of thoughts are going to be discouraging. And we might even be sad or feel hopeless. Our behavior could be something like walking on eggshells when we are around that child. Or we read talks. We talk to friends. What do I do? How do I fix this? We ruminate and we spin. The reality is, we find evidence for where we went wrong or where we failed. And it just is a continual loop, because our lower brain is there to keep us safe and to fix problems. And it will continue to look for that evidence of where we went wrong. I want to slow this down just a little bit using that reality creation formula. And let's see if we can come up with a more peaceful reality, something that we can live with and grow from, as opposed to spin in. So the fact is the same. Your child says, I no longer believe in the church. Put that in quotes. My thought could be, I love my child and I will respect their journey. And with that, you feel trust, confidence, and hopeful. Your behavior is going to be love, respect their journey. You're going to invite without preconceived notions of conversations and walking on eggshells. You're going to be more open and just loving with your child. And the reality is, your child knows you love them. In the first situation, you can love your child, but it's not going to feel authentic because you're trying to fix them. In this situation, you are trusting you and your heavenly parents and your Savior and respecting their journey. This doesn't mean we always use our prefrontal cortex. So in those two examples, when you're thinking of where did I go wrong? How do I fix this? You're living in your lower brain and you're kind of spinning out. When you shift to your higher brain and you are thinking, I love my child and I will respect this journey, you're using your higher brain and you're creating a fuller life. But we can't live in our higher brain all the time. It just doesn't happen, no matter how much you do this work. You drop back into that lower brain at times and you start to spin. But awareness is the key, and being curious and knowing that you can move from your lower brain to your higher brain. So let me share some ways that this can happen. The first step is you notice you're spinning, and then you pause and you think about, what am I feeling? So if you are spinning and you're feeling discouraged or sad, you want to label that feeling. And feelings are one word. Sometimes we use our thoughts to describe our feelings and we think that's our feeling, but a feeling is one word. So you find it in your body. Where does that discouragement feel? Is it in your chest? Is there tightness? Is it rolling around in your stomach? Are your hands numb? Is your neck stiff? And you acknowledge it. You find it, you name it, and you acknowledge it. And you say, there's that discouragement. I can see you rolling around in my stomach there, making me spin and feel more hyped up than I want to be. And you sit with it. And then you will feel in a short amount of time that feeling lift out of your body. And you will feel lighter. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't come back, but you just do the same thing. Oh, I'm feeling discouraged. Oh, that's why I'm feeling so anxious and agitated and not like myself. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of, the goal isn't to feel amazing all the time. That was not God's plan. We were sent here to feel all of the feelings, but He doesn't want us to ruminate in sorrow and sadness. The goal is to use our prefrontal cortex, not that lower brain, whose sole purpose is to keep us safe and save energy. This is a great time for a that happened moment. We are all aware that as members of the church, we're messy. We're humans, and there is just craziness that goes along with that. I was sitting in ward council. Things with one of my children was a little tender, and I was hurting. And another member in the ward council had just sent their son on a mission, and we were all asking, how are you doing? Did he make it to the MTC okay? This was prior to that week at home MTC. And his comment was, this is the hardest thing I have ever done. We need support groups for parents when they send their kids on missions. I was sitting in that room thinking, do you really think this is the hardest thing there is to do as a parent? Yes, it is excruciatingly hard to put those kids on a plane or to drop them off at the MTC and know you're not going to see them for 18 months or 2 years. I get it. That is hard. But I had stuff going on that I was like, I'll take that any day over what's going on here. The point I want to make is grace. Grace for their experience and grace for mine. And those kind of things are going to happen and continue to happen all the time. So I want to show you, using the reality creation formula, how I worked through that. So the fact was, a gentleman in ward council said, in quotes, sending my child on a mission is the hardest thing I have ever done. My story was, you think that's hard? Try having a real problem. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was jealous. I was hurt. And my behavior was, I shrunk in my seat. I clammed up. I stewed in my thoughts. I was bitter. I was not showing up as the person I wanted to be. And I created a hard day that went with my thought of, oh, you think that's hard? So here's a different option. That gentleman said, sending my child to the MTC on a mission was the hardest thing I've ever done. My thought could have been, they have their experiences and I have mine. That is a really hard day. And I could feel love for them. I could feel respect for them. And my behavior could have been, instead of shrinking in my seat, I could have shared my experience without judgment. The reality would be that I respect my experience and their experience. And I also know God is not done teaching us. We all have moments of growth. I want to say this clearly. Hard conversations don't mean you're failing. Feeling emotional afterwards doesn't mean you're weak. And calming your nervous system isn't avoiding reality. It's learning how to stay with yourself when things feel harder than normal. This is what confident women do. They don't bypass emotions, they know how to process them. This is a skill. It's not something you're born with, like a personality trait. I want to throw in a "you're allowed" moment right here. You are allowed to feel shaken after a hard conversation and still trust yourself. You're allowed to not show up exactly how you wished you had, but offer some grace and know you're doing your best. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Elder Jeffrey R. Holland once taught that broken minds can be healed just the way broken bones and broken hearts are healed. Needing support after emotional pain isn't failure. It's part of being human. So if you're listening to this and thinking, I need help doing this in real life, not just in my head, that's exactly what I help women with. I work with LDS moms who love deeply, care deeply, and are tired of emotionally spiraling every time life doesn't go according to the plan they were taught. I want to invite you to book a free clarity call with me. It's a real conversation. We'll look at what's actually happening in your life, where you're stuck, and whether coaching would support you. You do not have to do this alone. The link is in my show notes, and I would love to talk with you. So next time you walk away from a hard conversation and your emotions flare, remember this: nothing has gone wrong. Those feelings are just reminding you that you are human. And now you know how to help yourself by feeling those feelings instead of stuffing them down. I will talk to you next time.